Hi, my friend, it's Pat Sloan here. Let's first kick off with what is on the calendar, which is a scavenger hunt for today. Today, we are going to share pictures of pincushions, our pincushions. So what I did is I went and gathered up my pincushions. What do I have in here? This is all I could find. Over the years, I have had more. I have, they've either been donated or they sort of got icky and worn out, like cotton ones I think tend to get icky and wear out after a while, so I don't have them anymore. But I'll just highlight a few. I have a couple of these that were gifts that are wool, and they're just amazing. They're really firm. I use this little one all the time because it fits in my little basket. This one was a gift made with my Morrison Park by Cheryl. I bought this one because I thought the wood was so beautiful to have the pin in it. When we were in China, I had to buy the touristy, I've tried using the pins in it, but the silk's not so good. So I bought an antique one because I didn't have an antique one of my own. There's a little label on there and somebody put their initial. Cute little pins in there. And then there's a snail one I bought from French General's online website. Look at how cute he is. It's very firm also. I like them very, the stuffed really well. And so anyways, that's what I have in here. So today you can show your pincushions over at the community group, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan at Facebook. Can't wait to see them. And and my group is public, so anybody can go there, anybody can share a photo. Your posts have to be approved, so just put it up there once, and then when I get around to it, or Greg or Dennis get in there, when we get over there, we'll approve them. So pincushion day. All right, the other thing that I have a question that came in that I think is a really good one to discuss. It's about applique. So here we go. Can you wash an applique quilt? Okay, this came from Chris, and I believe Chris was probably talking about fusible applique by machine. But I'm going to also sort of address hand applique quilt too. So first of all, yes, you can wash your applique quilt. Do you want to heavily wash it? If it were me, no. Because I find that applique quilts, I tend to feel like I put a bit more work into them, and I don't really want to have the 10-year-old using it as a fort and things like that. But there are times when you know you're going to give put some applique on something that you know the quilt will be heavily washed, such as a baby quilt. Maybe maybe you want to put a sailboat on it, or their name, or a cute little bunny, and you know that since it's a baby quilt or a child's quilt, it will get heavily washed. So I have some tips for you. But first, let me show you a hand applique quilt of mine that I did a ton ago, years ago, and have used on my bed off and on, and it has been washed. And so this was, I think, maybe it's a Blackbird. I think it was a Blackbird Designs pattern. So some of you that follow them, I think that's who it was. It was so long ago, and it's bed size, so it's huge. But here you go. Here, I'll sort of move it around. It's got all the applique on the border, wreaths, baskets, just so fun. And I have, here we go to the bottom. There we go. Now this has been washed many times. Let me show you. It's hand appliqued. So there you can see, I've not had any problem with it lifting at this point because I'm careful with it. It's mine. It's not children, using it, because all that tugging and stuff is what can also affect your stitches on hand applique quilts, because you just usually have that one thread, and depending on how closely you put them together, there's a bit of a space there. So you just want to, I personally wouldn't do a hand applique quilt for a little kid that's going to use it all the time. That's just me. The other one now, let's talk about fusible. Definitely this is the way to go for quilts that will get washed more often, I think, is fusible applique by a machine. This is my mama's garden. So a lot of you have made this. Over the years, you've taken classes with me, and It is one of my most made quilts ever by, by all of you. So this one is, let me just take it down. This one is machine applique. And if you were in any of my classes for this, this is the one that was in the classroom. So there you can just see on the light, the stitching size. So when I have a couple tips for you for machine applique, because it has to do with two factors. One is your stitch, and the other is the fabric itself. So this particular quilt has cottons and it has flannels, and some of those are more open weave. So an open weave fabric, I would say I would not use for one that's going to be heavily washed. Let me show you this other little quilt. This is in my applique book. There we go. Let me pull back. This pattern's in my applique book. Here's what the book is. If you want to really learn fusible applique and all of my tips for that, this is the book to have. So I have in here cottons and batiks. So like all these orange petals are batiks. The roof, top of the roof cone is batiks. These are cottons, these are cottons. So they're all, a mix in here. Now look at the stitch size on those petals. They are deeper and bigger than the stitch size I just showed you on Mama's Garden. So let me just get that again. So you can see, there you can see on that purple. That's a much smaller stitch size. So here's my two tips for washing applique quilts. One, I'm just going to draw this. Let me just draw the edge. The first is this, just talk about the stitch size. So here is a leaf, okay? So we'll do two leaves like this. And when you're stitching, if you're doing something that's more decorative and you don't want the blanket stitch to be as visible, you could do a smaller blanket stitch because you're not going to be washing it, you're not going to be putting a lot of pressure and tension on it. So you could be coming along and just going like a tiny little bite like this, which I showed you like on the Mama's Garden. And that would be, a size that you could do. Now, if you wanted to wash this, what I recommend is that you make the bite, the part that goes onto the applique, deeper. That way it takes a bigger hold onto the applique shape. Don't change the distance between the bites because you don't need to change that. You don't want to have a pocket in there. So if I was doing this for washing, I would take a bigger bite and then straight, bite, straight, bite, straight, bite, straight, bite, straight, like that. And you can see then there's a bigger stitch size. That will then hold on to the fabric, because as fusible applique is an adhesive under the leaf. Under the leaf you have a little bit of adhesive, which is putting it onto the background. As you wash it, that adhesive can rub off or just dissolve or wear out over years and years of washing. And that means then there's nothing but the stitch holding it down, which is totally fine. You just need to be sure you have a big enough stitch. And that's why the sort of more tiny decorative stitch, it might fray out from under the edge of the leaf if the leaf no longer has any fusible holding it down. Okay, your second thing is to use batik fabrics, because their fray point is so small. They're a tight woven fabric. They don't fray or very little. So as you have like the baby quilt that's washed all the time, if their name or the sailboat is made in batik fabric, then you're good, because it will just stay on there pretty much forever. As long as you've got that bite into it big enough. And so here is, again, like the batiks, and then here is cotton. And so you can see the stitch size here. That definitely would hold on to this if it was being washed all the time. So those are my tips for fusible applique by machine, washing your quilt. It can be done, it can be done. Okay, I have to show you a finish. I got the little pillow done. There we go. I think it was in the morning chat that Kendall said is "Year of the Tiger" for the Chinese New Year, and I've got the tiger on here. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Now I did pick this floral for the back. I went through my pinks and I thought, oh, I need something really pretty and springy, and this is from Lori Holt's line. Well, it's one of her new lines, but anyways, there is the pink fabric. I was so happy to find that. Yes. So another thing, let me do an insert here. I got the box packed up for the spa. It has been a while since I've had this many quilts. I think there's 7 of them here. There's Woodland Wonderland. There is the Happy Everything quilt. I have the Old School Block of the Month. The this is the Holiday Homies. That's right, Holiday Homies. The little red and white Woodland Wonderland. The postage stamp, and the Woodsy. What is that? 7, I think. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are all going off to the spa. They're going to Judy, Spa Judy. And I'm gonna have to get Mr. Greg to put these in a big box so I can send them up to Judy. All right, that feels good to get these out. And when they come back, I'm going to try to do all of these bindings first before I get to the older bindings, besides the coffee one, because I have the coffee one here. So all of these will go into the queue, and I'll just do a bunch of bindings before I go on to other UFOs. So it feels good to get that box put together. Now I want to show you the crumb blocks. So I'm looking at that. That's one of the items on my list to do. And I have several stacks of the crumb blocks from 2021. Here are some of the crumb blocks. And what I did is I put them into 2 piles. These are a little bit smaller than this pile. So all of these, I think I can get them all up to about an 8.5. You know, this is the smallest one on top, and then some of those are a little bit bigger, but I don't want to have to add to everything, so I need to get them all to a common size. So I think 8.5, and then I can come over here, and if there's some on here that if I need a few more blocks, I can trim a few of those down, but I don't want to trim the bigger ones down if I don't feel I need to. All right, here they are up on the wall. And my idea originally here with these is to make them all into half square triangles, so that I will take and find a bunch of light color, like probably white. I think I'll just pop them with white, and then make these all into half square triangles, which means I'll get double the number of half square triangles. And then I can play around on the wall, maybe doing sort of that barn raising style with them. Maybe an asymmetrical one, and then if I need a few more, like I said, I'll just get something off of the little bit bigger pile. So I think I'm going to do that. Plus, I just noticed, like this one, I don't want to cut that one in half. So I won't use this to cut in half. I just think that's the coolest thing. I think it could be a pillow or something like that, like one of the little pillows, but that one I won't cut in half. So occasionally I think I'm going to run into that. And I also did notice a few of these were a bit, there's a couple more that were a bit smaller, so I'm going to have to make those a bit bigger to get up to the 8.5. So I'm going to mess around with that. I'll go through my lights. I'm not sure what I have up there. I've got some fun light fabrics, so I don't know. I've got some like a gray with a big polka dot, a white with a gray polka dot that's kind of cool, so I might alternate some of them with that just to mix it up. Lots of fun things. Oh, and one quilt share I have to show you. I've had this saved off. It is from Jennifer. So Jennifer did my, from Summer Soiree, she did the block that's called Surprise, and she made it into a whole quilt. Now this is the second one I've seen, and it is also spectacular. So cool. I still would love to do that myself as a whole quilt. I think it's a bit more that block than a one day, a block a day, because it would, I'm trying to do a fast one for a block a day because I considered that. So Jennifer, thank you for sharing. All right, today you will Show off your pin cushions in the scavenger hunt. Look around your house, gather all your pin cushions, take a picture, and show me over at our community page. So I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.